You have likely seen it happen before, perhaps without fully recognizing what was unfolding right in front of you. A woman who has been without intimacy for an extended period begins to move through the world differently. The subtle shifts are there in her posture, her eyes, the way she speaks to you, the way she holds a silence just a moment too long. These changes are not random. They are not accidental. They are the quiet signals of a deeper need, one that she may not even fully articulate to herself. When a woman hasn't been intimate in a long time, she does not always announce it with words. She shows it through a series of psychological and behavioral shifts that, if you know what to look for, speak louder than any confession. And understanding these signals is not about manipulation or control. It is about seeing clearly what is already there so that you can respond with wisdom rather than confusion. The first thing to understand is that prolonged absence of intimacy affects women differently than it affects men. For many women, desire is not a constant burning flame. It is a responsive force, one that requires the right conditions to emerge. When those conditions are absent for a long time, the body and mind begin to send out signals of their own. Women may show subtle changes like increased flirtation, seeking more attention, or lowering usual boundaries when feeling sexually deprived. This is not a conscious strategy. It is a natural response to a biological and emotional need that has gone unmet. The psychologist James Boss notes that rekindling desire after such an absence is not something that simply happens. It is something that must be nurtured with effort, chemistry, and intention. And before that nurturing can begin, the signs of that absence must first be recognized. One of the most common signals is a heightened sensitivity to attention. A woman who has been without intimacy for a long time may begin to crave the feeling of being seen. She may hold your gaze a moment longer than usual. She may find reasons to touch you, a hand on your arm during conversation, a playful nudge, a lingering brush as she passes by. These are not meaningless gestures. They are the body's way of reaching out, of testing whether the connection it craves is still possible. Psychologist and author Dr. James Dobson explains that women often need to experience closeness before they can fully embrace intimacy. Without that emotional and romantic element, intimacy can feel hollow, even transactional. When a woman has been without that closeness for a long time, the longing for it can leak out in these small, almost imperceptible ways. Another sign is a change in emotional tone. Women who have been deprived of intimacy for a long time may become more irritable, more easily frustrated, or more prone to mood swings. This is not simply a matter of temperament. It is a physiological response. Without the natural release of endorphins and oxytocin that comes with physical intimacy, stress hormones like cortisol linger longer in the bloodstream. This can lead to disrupted sleep, increased anxiety, and a general sense of emotional unease. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that we should not be disturbed by events, but by our judgments about them. And yet, when the body is out of balance, it can be difficult to maintain that clarity of judgment. The frustration she feels may not be about you at all. It may be the accumulated weight of an unmet need that has nowhere else to go. There is also a deeper psychological layer at work. When intimacy fades, women often personalize the absence of connection in ways that cut deep. They may stop feeling attractive, desired, or worthy of love. This erosion of self-esteem can manifest in a variety of ways. She might become more withdrawn, more guarded, or conversely, more eager to please, hoping to restore a sense of value through external validation. Studies show that women who suppress sexual and emotional intimacy may experience increased cortisol levels, disrupted sleep cycles, and higher rates of anxiety and depression. The absence of intimacy is not just a gap in the calendar. It is a wound that touches the very core of how she sees herself. And that wound often seeks expression in the way she relates to the men around her. The Stoics had a profound understanding of desire and its effects on the human soul. They recognized that sexual desire, like any other passion, must be governed by reason if it is not to disrupt our tranquility. The ancient Stoics believed that the ideal human life is free of passion, not in the sense of being emotionless, but in the sense of being ruled by reason rather than impulse. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, famously described sex in stark, almost clinical terms as something rubbing against your penis. A brief seizure and a little cloudy liquid. This was not a dismissal of intimacy, but a reminder not to let desire cloud our judgment. When we see a woman's signals of longing, we must not mistake them for an invitation to exploit or manipulate. We must see them as what they are, a human need seeking expression, and respond with clarity and respect. What then should a man do when he recognizes these signals? The Stoic answer is not to chase or to ignore, but to observe with detachment and act with virtue. The first step is to resist the urge to react impulsively. When a woman who has been without intimacy for a long time begins to show signs of interest, it can be easy to misinterpret her signals as a green light for immediate gratification. But the Stoic knows that desire, when left unchecked, can lead to poor decisions and damaged relationships. Epictetus advised that in respect to sensual desire, one should altogether keep away from it. And as to avoidance, one should not show it with respect to any of the things which are not in our power. This does not mean suppressing desire entirely. It means not allowing it to dictate our actions. We can acknowledge the desire, feel it, and then choose how to respond based on reason rather than impulse. The second step is to practice presence. When a woman is signaling her longing, what she often needs most is to feel truly seen, not as an object of desire, but as a whole person. A woman who hasn't been intimate in a long time may be carrying not just physical need, but emotional loneliness, doubts about her own attractiveness, and a quiet fear that she is no longer desirable. When you engage with her with genuine presence, when you listen without distraction and respond without agenda, you offer her something more valuable than any physical gesture. You offer her the experience of being known, and that experience can be the foundation on which genuine intimacy is rebuilt. The third step is to maintain your own center. Stoicism teaches that we have power only over our own thoughts and actions. We cannot control whether she responds to us, whether she is ready for intimacy, or whether the connection will deepen. But we can control how we show up. We can be steady, grounded, and unattached to any particular outcome. This is not coldness. It is the opposite of coldness. It is the warmth of a man who is so secure in himself that he does not need to grasp or demand. He can simply be present. And in that presence, he creates the conditions for something real to grow. When a woman who has been starved of intimacy encounters a man who is genuinely grounded, something in her recognizes it. She may not have the words for it, but she feels the difference between a man who is trying to take something and a man who is simply there. It is also worth considering the broader context of why intimacy has been absent in the first place. Sometimes the absence is situational, a dry spell brought on by life's demands. Sometimes it is relational, a symptom of disconnection that has been building for years. And sometimes it is personal, rooted in a woman's own struggles with self-worth or past trauma. The return to intimacy after a long pause can feel tender, uncertain, and at times frightening. A woman may approach it with hesitation, testing the waters before she fully commits. She may send out signals and then pull back, unsure of whether she is ready to follow through. This is not a game. It is a cautious re-entry into a vulnerable space. The Stoic virtue of patience is essential here. Rushing her, pressuring her, or interpreting her hesitation as rejection will only push her further away. Instead, honor her pace. Let her know that she is safe, that there is no deadline, that intimacy will unfold when it is ready. Another layer to consider is the role of self-esteem in this dynamic. A lack of intimacy can generate frustration, emotional isolation, and a progressive drop in self-esteem. When a woman feels less worthy of love, she may seek validation in ways that are not always direct. She may become more attentive to your needs, hoping that if she gives enough, she will receive in return. She may become more critical of herself and more sensitive to any perceived rejection. The Stoic understands that true self-worth comes from within, not from external validation. But we cannot impose that understanding on another person. What we can do is offer a presence that does not reinforce her doubts. We can offer consistency, reliability, and a steady respect that does not waver based on her mood or her availability. Over time, that consistency can help rebuild the foundation of trust that intimacy requires. There is also a biological component that should not be overlooked. For some women, prolonged sexual inactivity can lead to physical changes such as vaginal atrophy, where the walls of the vagina dry out, become thin, and are more apt to tear. This can make the prospect of intimacy physically daunting, even when the desire is there. A woman may want to reconnect, but fear the discomfort that may accompany it. This is another reason why patience and communication are essential. The Stoic approach is not to ignore the physical reality, but to face it with clear eyes and respond with wisdom. If intimacy is to be restored, it must be done with care, with attention to her comfort, and with a willingness to move slowly. Ultimately, the signals a woman sends when she hasn't been intimate in a long time are not a puzzle to be solved or a game to be won. They are an invitation to a deeper kind of connection. They are a chance to see beyond the surface and to respond to the person underneath. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote that true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. When you are present with a woman who is signaling her longing, you are not trying to secure a future outcome. You are simply being with her in this moment without demand or expectation. And in that space of presence, something genuine can emerge. The ancient Stoics also distinguished between inclination and desire. Inclination is a natural tendency, a direction that does not compel us. Desire, on the other hand, is a grasping, a demand that something be a certain way. When a woman signals her interest, you may feel an inclination toward her. That is natural. But if that inclination turns into desire, into a need for a specific outcome, you have lost your freedom. The Stoic sage loves in a rational way which excludes passionate erotic love because of its intrinsic excessiveness and uncontrollableness. This does not mean the Stoic does not feel love. It means that his love is governed by reason, not overwhelmed by passion. The same is true for responding to a woman's signals of longing. You can feel the pull without being pulled off center. You can acknowledge the desire without being ruled by it. This is the path of the Stoic man. He does not ignore the signals. He sees them clearly. He does not dismiss the longing. He honors it, but he does not let it dictate his actions. He remains grounded in his own values, his own sense of self, his own steady presence. And in doing so, he becomes a safe harbor for a woman who has been drifting in the absence of intimacy. She feels a steadiness. She feels that she does not have to perform, does not have to manage his emotions, does not have to be anything other than what she is. And in that safety, the walls she has built begin to soften. It is also important to remember that not every signal of longing is an invitation for you to act. Sometimes a woman's increased attention is a sign that she is working through her own feelings, testing the waters of her own desire, not necessarily seeking a connection with you specifically. The Stoic virtue of discernment is essential here. Do not assume that every smile is a come on or every touch is a green light. Observe, listen, and respond with awareness. If you are unsure, you can always ask. Direct, respectful communication is far more effective than guesswork, and it honors the other person's autonomy. When a woman hasn't been intimate in a long time, she may also begin to lower her usual boundaries. This is not a sign of weakness, but of need. The body and mind, starved of connection, may reach out in ways that surprise even her. She may find herself drawn to men she would not normally consider, or she may engage in flirtation that feels out of character. Again, this is not a strategy. It is a response. The Stoic sees this not as an opportunity to exploit, but as a signal that she is in a vulnerable state. And vulnerability, if handled with care, can be the seed of genuine intimacy. If handled carelessly, it can become the source of regret. The philosopher Epictetus also taught that a man must discover an art with respect to giving his assent. In other words, we must learn when to say yes and when to say no, not just to others, but to our own impulses. When you recognize a woman's signals of longing, you are at a crossroads. You can say yes to impulse, to the fleeting satisfaction of the moment. Or you can say yes to something deeper, to the patient cultivation of a connection that honors both her needs and your own integrity. The choice is yours, and it reveals everything about the kind of man you are. In the end, the woman who has been without intimacy for a long time is not a mystery to be solved. She is a person with a deep and legitimate need for connection. Her signals are not a test. They are a language, and like any language, they can be learned. The Stoic approach to learning this language is not to become a master manipulator, but to become a master of oneself. When you are steady, present, and unattached to outcome, you create a space in which she can feel safe enough to be honest about what she truly wants. And in that space, the intimacy she has been longing for can finally find its way back. If you have found yourself on the receiving end of these signals, take a moment to check your own intentions. Are you responding from a place of genuine care or from a place of need? Are you seeing her as a whole person or as a solution to your own loneliness? The Stoic knows that the only thing we truly control is our own character. When you align your responses with your highest values, you can move forward with clarity and confidence. And whether the connection deepens or fades, you will have acted with integrity. That is the greatest prize of all.